Hello, everybody. Welcome to our virtual financial aid night. We are so privileged to have Mr. Ed Bianchi with us from Williams College. He is going to be leading us through our presentation tonight. He has lots of information to share with you all. Because this is a webinar we are recording, we'll be able to post the information to our YouTube page later on once the webinar is finished. And you'll also use the Q&A section to ask your questions, and Mrs. O and I will be answering those questions as we can while Mr. Bianchi is giving us all of the information that he has compiled for us tonight. So thank you for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bianchi.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all for having me. First off, this is it's awesome to be back kind of speaking with students, even though we're virtual and I can't see any of you. I know you're really smiling and soaking all this in. So my name is Ed Bianchi. I am an associate director of admission at Williams College, but my wife is actually the director of student financial services here. So financial aid, billing, and that has been her career for 20 plus years. She started when she was 12. So she's, she's been in financial aid for a long time. And so I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. I have a little presentation we'll go through, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure, yep, I can do that. Okay. And so, again, this is me, right? Ed Bianchi. So I live in Williamstown, Massachusetts, northwest corner of Massachusetts we have a 13-year-old son who's in the 8th grade. And I'm originally actually from the South, born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina, and had the privilege to get down to the Research Triangle this year, actually, and meet Jenny, Miss Johnson, one evening. So again, thank you for the invite. Super excited to be here, but let's go ahead and kind of hit on what we're going to talk about. What are our goals tonight? So the idea here is really to get a good overview of the financial application journey that y'all are getting ready to embark on, and really have you leave a little more confident and comfortable with that, and feeling a little less intimidated with that. We're going to go through the types of financial aid. We're going to talk about how colleges go about determining your financial need, which your financial aid is based on. We're going to talk about some differences in financial aid packaging and how to make a little bit of sense out of those. And then we're going to kind of conclude with really some important questions for you to be asking as you are, embarking on really trying to make sure that the financial aid matches the excitement of the admission. Okay. So first up, we're going to just talk about the different types of financial aid a little bit. So at the top of this chart here, you'll see grants. So grants are typically dollars that are awarded to students by a college or federal governments, like the Pell Grant, right? And they're typically based on financial need. And again, we're going to talk a little later about how that's determined and what that really means. And these are, again, federal and college dollars that are awarded directly to the student, don't need to be repaid, okay? Similar to the next line down is scholarships, okay? Slight different here. So scholarships being a little more merit-based. So that may be your grades, your test scores, your class rank. It might be your involvement or leadership that you've shown. Some places it could even be geography if colleges are looking for students from different parts of the country. As we move down, the next two kind of move us out of the free money category, okay? So we're moving into work study. Work study dollars, again, are typically awarded based on your need, okay? And the idea is that you're going to have a campus job where you earn money, and that money should go towards maybe tuition and fees or other expenses for college, right? So it's not necessarily always just going into your pocket as your summer job might, okay? And if we move down to the bottom, we're into the federal loans, all right? You're going to have about $5,500 of eligibility in your first year for student loans, and that will increase a little bit as you go through. Again, these are loans. They need to be paid back. after you graduate. There are a number of different payment options. We're going to talk a little more about loans later, but they really aren't as scary. They're not option number one, but they're not as scary as we often, I think they are. So let's move now. We've talked about kind of what are we going to get, right? What are we going to have in our financial aid award? But the first piece is the college has to figure out how much does your family need? Okay, so what is that? What does that need so we can figure out the package? So everyone's going to do the free application for federal student aid, FAFSA, right? You've probably heard this 100 times. Please don't throw anything at the screen, all right? And what you're going to need for this form is your tax returns. And the returns you're going to use, a few years ago, they changed this so that it's on a what we call a prior year. So if you are applying to college this year, you're going to use your tax information from the year 2021. Okay, so that's already been filed, already been returned. That allows you to have that on hand so that when you're applying for admission, you're also able to fully apply for financial aid and not have to worry about when am I filing my taxes and are these deadlines going to match up. Really makes it a little bit easier to have all of your information in place. The thing I'll stress here, okay, most colleges have kind of moved to the admission deadline is often the financial aid deadline or the financial aid priority deadline, okay? Having this done early and done correctly early can really allow you to kind of get first dibs on some financial aid. Some colleges are going to start awarding that money early based on who's complete for their financial aid, okay? So a lot of advantages to making sure that you're on top of this and getting this done early. The second piece here is the CSS profile. So this is used by colleges to really help us determine. So we use this at Williams. Not every college will use the CSS profile, but this is used in our case to help us get a clearer picture of a family's finances so that we can award our money need-based towards those grants. Okay, so the FAFSA, oftentimes that's where we're going to know what is your Pell eligibility, what is your eligibility for federal grants. But the CSS profile is going to help us really figure out how much of our money is coming into this situation. So it's two forms, y'all. It's a lot. I'm not going to say it's nothing. Okay, it's a lot of work to get these done, but the payoff in the end is there. Okay, so just remember why you're doing this. The last piece of this puzzle is IDOC. Okay, and so what this is actually the system that you're going to be able to use for colleges that are using, in particular, the CSS profile. Many will use IDOC and many others, but this allows you to just upload all of your forms in one place and send them then to every college that uses IDOC, right? So you're not having to actually send all of this information 10 times to 10 different schools. Similar to the common application, you're able to let them know where these need to go. So just a super easy tool to really help you get all the information to the colleges. So once we have this information, we take it, and that's how we're determining your financial need, or what we call your EFC, your estimated family contribution, which then lets us know what we're going to do and what your financial aid award is going to be. So we're going to walk through next kind of how that happens. What's the math we're doing on our side? So kind of the basic math behind this, we're going to take the cost of attendance, which is, as you can see here, tuition, fees, room, board, books, travel, personal allowances, things like, a little spending money, travel back and home, back and forth to home if you're not going to school right in the area, haircuts, toiletries, just all those things that you need to live, right? And so that's typically in that cost of attendance number, okay? So it's more than just the tuition and the fees and where you're going to live and where you're going to eat. So we're going to take that number and we're going to subtract the family contribution, okay? So this is really, it's a calculation of what the college believes the parents and student can contribute towards the cost of attendance. Again, this is based on the information from the FAFSA and if needed from the CSS profile. You can see there, it's called a family contribution because we're talking about piece of it from the parent and the parent income and assets, and then students as well. So there is oftentimes, you know, a student contribution that is in that family contribution. Once we take that and we find the difference, then we know what your financial need is. Okay, this is the financial, ideally the amount of financial aid you will receive, but it's definitely the amount of financial aid that you need to make your enrollment at a certain college possible. And then I think it gives us an idea of how we're going to award your aid based on what that need is. So let's take a quick look at how we actually calculate that family contribution. So let's dive a little bit deeper here. We're going to start with the parent contribution, okay? So you can see here, there's a number of factors that go into the parent contribution. Most that, you know, kind of are easy and are, I guess, there or not there in every case are these first income, assets, number and family, all the way over to retirement readiness, okay? The last one, this professional judgment, this comes in when, you know, there's different things that have happened, right? We all know that COVID has been, you know, it's changed employment statuses, it's changed our incomes. Things are wonky, right? So what happened in 2021 may not be what's happening now, for better or worse, okay? And so this is where it's huge, and we're going to talk more about this later as well, but it's huge to communicate with the financial aid offices, because there is a layer of professional judgment in there. And so I want you to see that it's not just number plus number plus number minus number, right? There is a human aspect to this process. So the other that I'll point out that I think not always people are considering is the medical and elder care. You know, a lot of folks are, you know, we have medical bills that were unexpected and are taking us longer to pay, and a lot of us are taking care of maybe older family members. And so that is something that is coming into play when we consider this parent contribution. Now, important notes here. So both parents are expected to contribute even if they're divorced or separated. What I'll add, okay, colleges all have processes for not including a non-custodial parent, okay? They're different at every college, right? It may be similar, right? But it's not like it's a form, as we talked about earlier, that can go to every college, okay? So if this is a situation where there is a non-custodial parent, you know, that is just not going to contribute for whatever reason, reach out to the financial aid office. Typically, you can find it. If you navigate to the website for your financial aid office, you can usually find that form that they want you to fill out there. And that is then one more step to help clear up what those finances truly are, okay? Otherwise, there is an expectation that both parents are going to contribute. As you see here, you're not expected to contribute from your retirement savings. You know, with that being in this calculation, we're not saying you have to dip into your retirement. It just, again, is another thing that I think helps us know that, okay, these folks are really well prepared for retirement. And so, you know, it's just another thing that we can calculate. And then here, again, you'll see that allowances are given for if parents have debt from college. And if, you know, you have other siblings in college or siblings maybe at a private school and you're paying tuition there, there are a lot of things, again, that can be calculated into this more than just what is our income. Okay, so please be aware of those opportunities. So then if we talk about the student contribution, so students are often asked to contribute each of their 4 years some portion of summer earnings. This doesn't always just show up on the award letter as student contribution from summer earnings. It oftentimes is rolled into the estimated family contribution. Okay, so it's sometimes hidden when you're really trying to look for it. And then students with assets. So, students, maybe there's some money that was left to you from your grandparents or something, that oftentimes can be calculated into that family contribution. So just things to think about as you're going through. One thing before we move on, and y'all please throw those questions in the Q&A as they come up, and we'll save some time at the end. And I'll answer as many of them as I can, I promise. But thinking about citizenship differences, right? So I mentioned earlier that, everyone needs to fill out the FAFSA. Okay, there's an exception to that, right? So students who have DACA status or, do not have citizenship status will not fill out the FAFSA, right? Because there's no eligibility for federal aid, okay? Sometimes there are opportunities for students who find themselves in this citizenship category to get state funds. I don't think, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think North Carolina, okay, so North Carolina is not one of those states. I kind of have my note here in parentheses that I don't think North Carolina is there, okay? So it's going to be important to do a couple things. If you find yourself here, okay, as a student, it's going to be important to ask colleges if they have an institutional application. Oftentimes they'll have their own internal form, okay, that they're going to use to help determine your need and how they can meet that, okay? So ask that question. Don't just think, if I can't fill in the FAFSA, I can't go to college, okay? Some of the more likely opportunities, okay, there are, with very generous colleges and outside organizations. So I'm going to share this. I've shared this with Ms. Johnson and Ms. Overman, but I'll have them share this presentation as well, because these links will be helpful. You can see the green highlights there. So the resources takes you to some different kind of scholarship programs. Dream US is a big one. I worked in Texas for 3 years before I started working at Williams, and many of our students were going to college as undocumented students, many taking advantage of Dream US funding. So a very generous program. And there are also very generous colleges. Williams, where I work, is one of those. Lafayette College in Pennsylvania, where I worked prior, we fund all students, regardless of, international, domestic, students without the privilege of citizenship living in the States, fund fully, right? Fund that need fully. And so there's a list there that'll take you to, I think it's about 30 colleges in the country that have basically come out and said, this is what we do. Okay. So don't think that, well, here it goes. I'm going to have to, work every day to make this happen. There are opportunities for that funding. Okay. And work with the financial aid office. No one is there to out you, to report you. It really is, it's a helpful place to be. Okay. So let's think about the next category. So the student has citizenship, but maybe the parents do not. Okay. This actually won't affect your financial aid status with the FAFSA. Okay. Because it never asks, are your parents U.S. citizens, right? It's going to ask if the student is. And so you actually will still be able, because it's your financial aid, not your parents' financial aid, you will still be able to use the FAFSA to apply. There's a resource sheet that I sent along as well that I know will be shared that answers a few more questions on, okay, well, how does that work? What do I need to then do at certain steps as I'm filling out the FAFSA? But know that as a student, if you do have citizenship, the FAFSA is the form for you. So I just, before we went on, I just wanted to kind of stop and add a little bit of background there. So we talked about merit-based financial aid, right? These are scholarships. Okay. These are the ones that get us excited when mom and dad go to the party and they go, oh my gosh, she got a scholarship to North Carolina State, right? And this is the thing. Okay. And this is often based on, as you can see here, your performance, whether that's academic, athletic, artistic. It could also be based in a lot of ways on kind of where you are, as it says here, in relation to the applicant pool. So are you showing really strong personal traits? Are you like, in your application, are you a leader that just stands out, that we can tell on paper, this is somebody who's going to come to our college and be a leader, right? So oftentimes there's scholarship dollars for that. Academic interest, maybe a school is trying to recruit more students interested in a new program that they have. They may have scholarship dollars devoted to that. And as I said, again, geography. Y'all, I grew up in the South. I went to college 2.5 hours from home. You'd have thought that I went to college in Egypt. My mom thought I was never coming home, right? But if you're willing to branch out a little bit and look at some different states, especially if you're going to look at public schools in different states, oftentimes there are going to be some scholarship dollars that are out there because they're trying to really improve their enrollment from the South, from North Carolina, maybe even as specific as the Research Triangle. Okay, so think about those things when you're thinking about scholarships, and not just, well, my grades are here, my testing's here, right? Think there's many other factors that go into this. Okay, so here is a little bit of homework as you're kind of going through your financial aid journey. So on the left, I think it's on the left of my screen. I'm assuming it's on the left as y'all see the screen too, but there's a quick calculator, okay? It's called the My Intuition calculator. Now, this is not everywhere, okay? This is on some college websites. It's on the Williams website. And what it is maybe about 3 minutes. You're going to answer a few questions, and it's going to give you kind of this range of what your financial aid at that college might look like. The trick here with both of these is that they're each tweaked for that college, right? So if you're thinking about 5 colleges, you need to do this for 5 colleges, okay? So that's why I called it homework, because it's kind of like going to the dentist. It's not fun, but you need to do it. And so the quick calculator, I would say, is a really good tool for kind of window shopping, right? In those early phases to get an idea. To get a little more specific, you want to look at the net price calculator. So this is federally mandated. It's, the idea was that colleges needed to be more transparent with their financial aid awarding. Students felt like they were kind of getting a bait and switch where they thought their financial aid would be this, they get admitted and their financial aid isn't close to that, okay? So the net price calculator, again, is on every college's website, every college in the country, tweaked to that college. All right, so you're going to have to do it for each college. This is going to take a little longer, okay? This is going to take you maybe 20 to 25 minutes, and you're going to want to have that tax information on hand because it's going to ask a little bit more detailed questions, because the end result is it gives you a sample award letter, okay? It says at our college, based on what you've put in here, this is what your financial aid could potentially look like. The follow-up to this, though, okay, is to reach out to the financial aid office and go through this with them to make sure you've done it correctly, because it's a computer program. So if you enter incorrect information, you're going to get incorrect results, right? They say trash in, trash out, right? And again, we all have very different financial situations. So sometimes it may be, well, I'm going to answer this question this way, but it could be this or this. Okay. So do this to show that you've done it, you've put in the work, and then you call the financial aid office at that college and have them kind of go through it with you. If they're not willing to do that, that might be a sign. Like I've not met a financial aid office that wouldn't. But I will say, if they're not willing to go through it with you, that may be what you need to hear. But again, use these tools, okay? Use them as you're even looking at colleges. I think not to eliminate a college and say, oh, this is too expensive, but to really get an idea of, similar to how you're ranking your colleges right now, this is a reach for our family financially. This is likely, like this could make sense. And this one, yeah, we feel really comfortable. We could do this all day, right? It's great to have those conversations early, but don't use it to eliminate colleges, okay? Because we're going to get into that on our next slide. So if we look at financial aid packages, all right, Williams College this is actually an older slide. It's actually about $81,000 now. That's a lot of money, y'all. And there are colleges right around the corner from us that are $32,000. Okay. Um, it doesn't just stop at the cost of attendance. All right. So let's kind of talk through this financial aid here. So on the left, we see this, we have a $35,000 cost of attendance. Okay. And the full need, I won't make you do the math, but the full need is met, right? So the cost of attendance is 35,000. The family's, set to contribute $1,000. And then the rest of it covers everything. So $35,000 covered, right? So if we look at the one on the right, we're at $75,000. If we do the math, $1,000 parent contribution again, and then everything covered, right? So we're both look great. I mean, it's there's going to be a zero at the bottom. This is awesome. But if we dive a little deeper on the one on the left, you'll notice there's $3,000 in work study, which again is that money that you're making through your campus job that is intended to come back and pay these fees and go towards your cost of attendance. Okay. And then you've got $3,500 in student loans annually. Okay. And so again, that's money you're going to pay back when you leave. If you look on the right, the $75,000. So this is actually, we do it a little bit differently now. Even I'll kind of really quickly talk about that, but you'll notice that the family contribution is the same. It's been calculated to $1,000. The work study is less than half. There is no student loan in it. And the grant, which is the money coming from the college based on your need, is almost $73,000. So in the end, you're not paying it back any loans when you leave. And your work study is, in Massachusetts, it's $14 an hour is the minimum wage. $1,300, you're working 100 hours the entire year. So that's a pretty significant difference. At Williams, we've actually eliminated the work study as well. So we do not package work study for students. But what I want to say is there are a lot of colleges out there, y'all, that cost a lot of money. Many of them have very generous financial aid programs. Okay, so don't just think that because I have my need met here, and I may not at the $80,000 college, let's really take a look at that and see what that means though. Okay. And how they're meeting your need. It's not just that need is being met, but it's how is the need being met. Okay. Look beyond the sticker price and tell your friends to do the same. This is from my wife. I'm not sure why she's encourage your friends to do the same. Tell your friends, guys, come on. So now let's shift to the parents, right? So thinking about financing options for parents. Obviously there's your checking account, but I don't have that. I can tell you right now, and I'm not going to have it in 5 years when my son goes to college either. And so there are federal loans for students and parents, obviously, to help with those costs. Many colleges, most colleges, I would probably, venture a guess, offer payment plans. So you're not just having to drop off that check day one. You can actually spread that out throughout the semester. There are 529 plans for savings that are an option. And then, there are bank and alternative kind of financing. The trick with those is to be really careful though. Okay. Just like anything else, just like any credit card, any other loan that you're getting, some of those options can be really unfriendly to the consumer, right? They're meant to take advantage of people, if we're going to be really honest. And so that's kind of the last alternative. I'll say that. There are options out there. There are some decent ones, but it should be hopefully the last alternative when it comes to parents filling in that parent contribution. So some things to keep in mind. The quick cost estimators and net price calculators can be your best friend. I'm telling you, they're not fun to fill out. But once you've done, especially the net price calculator, it takes a little while. But once you've done it once, it's the same questions. You're entering the same information, so you can kind of start rolling with it. But do it. Use it, use it, use it. Pay attention to the deadlines. Deadlines are huge. Colleges really aren't packaging they can't package your financial aid until they know what you need. Some colleges can admit you, and then you get really excited, and then you turn in your financial aid paperwork and you go, well, that's no good. And so it really is crucial. And if the word priority is in front of that deadline, do it. Consider that the deadline. Okay. That is going to just really, really boost you. Okay. And as you're doing that, share complete and accurate data up front. All right. Do it. That's why the net price calculator is great for your homework, because it's the practice test, right? It's going to allow you to know exactly what needs to be entered when you're doing that FAFSA and CSS profile. So make sure that's done the first time so you don't have as much back and forth. And be sure to ask questions of the financial aid offices and advocate for yourselves. Okay. I'll say this, and I worked, so I may have mentioned this, but I worked in Texas for a while with high school students. And one of the biggest things that we talked to our students about was students leading this advocacy. Okay. I think it's a natural instinct for parents to want to pick up the phone and advocate, right? And there are sometimes some places where parents need to, because they just know the answers to all the questions, right? Especially when we're talking about finances. But the more opportunities, students, that you can take to empower yourselves and advocate for yourselves and lead this process, the response on our side, when we see that from a student, is, okay, this young person means business. This is awesome. This is one more reason why we're excited for this person. Okay. So as much as you can, students, take ownership of it. Okay. So also remember, you have to do this every year. So, it's not going to be, oh, we did it once, man, that was a pain, never again. It's an every year thing. Okay. So all those records that were useful for you in year one, keep those new year copies of that for year 2, year 3, year 4. Okay. And don't forget about the hidden costs. Okay. One of those big examples of this that I'll share with you is insurance. Okay. Health insurance. So when I was in Texas, many of our students, their insurance didn't leave the state of Texas with them. Okay. It was typically a state plan that didn't leave with them. That's $2,500 at most campuses, that they weren't thinking about in their cost of attendance. Okay. Because it's not necessarily listed, because it's not that everybody needs it. Right. So those are questions to make sure that you're asking, is insurance covered? Is my insurance, does my insurance translate and transfer, right? Make sure those kind of questions you have answered. Make a friend in financial aid. Financial aid folks they enjoy the kind of the journey with you as much as we do in admission, right? They're as excited about you being at the college as we are. And then use your network. You've got great counselors. You've got me now. You'll have my information. So use that network that you're developing to really bounce questions off of. And again, to help you advocate, right? Do you guys know anybody at such and such college? It pays off. Okay. So I do want to touch before we leave, and this is kind of my last slide, but I do want to touch here. So thinking about the last, 3 years have been a mess, right? And they've not been typical and normal in any way. And so really the keys here, knowing that, right? And with colleges knowing that, are to communicate early and often with colleges, to keep your, again, update on your latest tax info and prepare for next year. We talked about that, but really the biggest thing is to keep a lot of notes and documentation over any changes that happen as basically as you're applying for aid, and as you continue to matriculate through college. Okay. These are things that sometimes might show up on your tax return and, and reflect in your FAFSA, but sometimes they don't, right? Sometimes your income hasn't changed. So your FAFSA won't necessarily change, but you have taken on more financial responsibility because your parents' sister got sick and now you have your cousins living with you, right? I mean, there's all kinds of things happening now more than what we saw in the past. So really, really, keep good records and be ready to present that, because when you've got the good records behind it and you're meeting the deadlines, I mean, you are like, trust me, you're an angel. Like, everybody knows your name in the office. Okay. And lastly, just really be patient with it. The end result is you're getting as much money as you can to go to college, right? So there's going to be some ups and some downs with that. Be patient with it and keep an open mind. Don't let kind of that first disappointing interaction or that first disappointing award letter turn you off or turn you down. Okay. It doesn't stop there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then, oh, and that was my family, y'all. Sorry, that was my wife on the right, and my son. And so here, let me share again. So yeah, this was back when the pandemic first hit, and everybody thought, oh, the way we're going to get through this is to take pictures of everybody in front of their doors, right? So we had somebody in our neighborhood that came and took this picture, but my son is actually now about 5 inches taller and has 0 baby fat left. It's sad. I can't take him out anymore. It's a struggle, but that's my wife there. She's from Mississippi. So we're both Southerners at heart. My son was born in Memphis. But again, thank y'all. Stop sharing. And glad to answer any questions that you might have, again, to the best of my ability, but also please know that I am a resource for you. And so, Ms. Johnson and Ms.